Okay, last time we looked at fluency, we did a little bit with this fluency chart. Um, if you haven't, go ahead and do this with your narrative. Just do the first 10 sentences that are on there. The last video cut out. So make sure that you go ahead and do this with your narrative, looking for those things that we talked about at the end of that video. What we're going to look at now is not just the art of sentence fluency, but the impact of the sentences that you choose and the lengths of those. There are two different parts. Well, we're going to just look at one for now. Go ahead and get this sheet back out that says varied sentence length at the top. And we're going to take a look at what we notice. So as we take a look at this one, descending, 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 to the silver door, the gaping mouth wanting to swallow us, waiting, waiting, precious minutes ticking, too much time, mom leading us through the silver door, dad returning, me screaming, silver door closing, loud, reverberating in my head, Graham gone, Eddie gone, world gone. Okay, so despite what the text is saying, what do we notice about the way the writer constructed the text? So first, of course, you're going to notice that the sentences are very short. What is the impact of very short sentences? Why would a writer use super short sentences? And take a look at this. Super short sentences create a feeling. And what feeling is this creating for the reader? How does the reader feel? Happy, sad, angry, anxious, nervous? What is happening with these short sentences? Usually you're going to say there's some sort of anxiety. That there's some sort of anxiety feeling here, whether that's in a happy situation, angry situation, sad situation, it doesn't necessarily matter. It's the fact that it creates some form of anxiety and nervousness within your reader and usually your character. Okay, so we have here the very, very short sentences. Down here, this one where we had counted and there were 97 total words, this is obviously going to be a very long sentence. Okay, and it says, I nodded, and when she was gone, I wrapped the belt and laces around my middle and gave it a good tug and began to spin and spin and slam into the lockers, and I got going so the gum I had under my tongue flew out and my super ball slipped out of my hand and went bouncing down the hall, and I kept going and going like when you rolled down a steep hill, and before long I was bumping on the glass walls around the principal's office like a dizzy fish in a fish tank. And this is from Joey Pig's Spell Key. And if you haven't read this book, it is about a child who has ADHD and what he feels. And so this long sentence right here with all these ands in it almost creates anxiety in that different direction. But think of how a run-on sentence kind of matches that mentality of someone who's just going and 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 going. And so putting those ands in this intentional run-on, there is the key word, it is intentional run-on, can show this kind of energizer bunny, energizer bunny idea, this going and not stopping. Okay. So if you have a part in your story like where your character is running away and they're running through a field and they're jumping over something and then they have to dodge this and then dodge that, you could do this either with a really long sentence or a bunch of really short sentences to prove that. So what you are looking at is what power, again, you have as the writer. All right. Some of these are not complete sentences. The word gone or the word waiting by itself is not a complete sentence. It is a fragment. But again, it's that word intentional, on purpose. So taking a look at this. What I want to show you next is this poem right here. And it says, this sentence has 5 words. Here are 5 more words. 5-word sentences are fine, but several together become monotonous. Listen to what is happening. The writing is getting boring. The sound of it drones. It's like a stuck record. The ear demands some variety. Now listen. I vary the sentence length and I create music. Music. The writing sings. It has a pleasant rhythm, a lilt, a harmony. I use short sentences, and I use sentences of medium length. And sometimes, when I am certain the reader is rested, I will engage him with a sentence of considerable length, a sentence that burns with energy and builds with all the impetus of the crescendo, the roll of the drums, the crash of the cymbals, sounds that they may listen to this, it is important. So what I like about this sentence should be fairly obvious. This idea that when you have multiple sentences in a row in your piece of writing that are all the same length, that can be exhausting for a reader. And I have the thing, I write really long sentences, which is equally exhausting for the reader. So what you need to do is with your text, if you haven't done this yet, again, use your narrative and do the first 10 sentences only. You can get a highlighter, a marker, circle the first 2 words, circle the ending punctuation, and then go ahead and fill this out. And figure out if you're exhausting your reader. If most of the sentences have the same number of words in them, you need to have some variation. Okay, maybe it's a suspenseful part where there's anxiety, your character is nervous, and you want to take one of those long, medium sentences and go ahead and just do 1 or 2 words. Notice these are not only 1 or 2 word sentences, they're 1 or 2 word paragraphs because it forces your reader to look at each of them as important and individual. Okay, maybe you have a part where your character is like running, like I said, through the woods, or they're kind of going crazy and things aren't stopping and they're going insane right now and their brain is just going like this and this and this and this. And maybe you want an intentional run on. Okay, these 2 also have examples of all of this. So take a look at these last 2 chunks here and look at what the writer did to vary the sentence length in these different texts. Okay, so you are looking at this, the ending punctuation, numbers of and, buts, and ors for sentence run-ons, and total number of words. Try to have a variation here. Do not have a 97-word sentence unless you get it approved, because that one is going to be pretty long. But if you have any over number 20, let's say you do run-ons a lot, if you're a run-on king or queen, 20 might be your number where you just get a couple of them checked by an adult. Okay, and keep in mind, even though we only do this to the first 10 sentences or so, whatever you're doing here, you're probably doing throughout. So if you find that in your first 10 sentences, 7 of them have 5, 6, 7 words, chances are you did that throughout your piece, and you need to go into your writing and find another place where when you look at it, you see a whole bunch of periods, like almost in a row on the document, and then go in there and do some fixing and revising on that. If you have any questions, want help, if you're not sure what to do with something, your teachers have been doing this. We know how to do this. We will help you do this. And that's about it. Happy revising.